You know this moment. It is electric, suspended in time. The conversation has found a rhythm, the laughter is genuine, the eye contact lingers just 1 second longer than it should. You are close, so close that you can feel the heat radiating from her skin. And then, a deafening silence invades your mind, a single question drowning out everything else. Is it now? Is this the moment? But instead of acting, you hesitate. A wave of analytical paralysis takes over, a frantic search for a clear verbal yes that almost never comes. That hesitation, that fear of getting it wrong, is the silent saboteur of countless perfect opportunities, leaving you with that hollow, sinking feeling of, what if? But what if I told you that, in that exact moment of doubt, she is almost always giving you a clear signal? It is not a billboard, and it is not a secret code you need to be a mind reader to understand. It is far more honest and far more primitive. While most men are focused on her eyes or her smile, they are missing the entire conversation happening somewhere else. They are missing the truth. Because the most unguarded and honest indicators of her desire are not on her face, they are in her hands. And if you stay with me through this analysis, I will show you not only the subtle clues, but the definitive gesture that is the silent equivalent of her saying, "What are you waiting for?" The promise I make to you is simple, but profound. By the end of this video, you will have a new lens through which to see the world. You will stop operating with only half the information, trying to decode female desire from smiles that may be polite and words that may be evasive. Instead, you will learn to read the raw, unfiltered truth that her body communicates when the conscious mind is too busy policing every gesture. We are going to dive into the psychology behind vulnerability, receptivity, and tension, showing why the hands, the farthest and hardest to control extremities of our nervous system, become the stage for emotional truth. This is not about a party trick. It is about gaining a fluency that few men possess. The ability to understand permission before it is verbalized. Let us decode the patterns together. You will not only learn to identify the unmistakable yes, but also, and perhaps more importantly, to recognize the definitive no, even if it comes disguised as a smile. The goal here is to give you the clarity to act with confidence, but also the wisdom to step back gracefully, saving you from misread signals that can be embarrassing and undermine your confidence. It is fascinating how universal these signs are, and for that reason, I would love to know where you are watching from. Leave your city or state in the comments. It is a way for us to connect on this journey. By mastering what I am about to show you, you will no longer need to guess. You will feel the shift from being a man who waits for a verbal invitation to being a man who reads permission in the air. My name is Ph.D. Emma Madison, and my authority on this subject does not come from seduction manuals, but from a lifetime of observation and an intimate understanding of female psychology. As a woman, I understand the subtle language we speak when our words cannot or do not want to be direct. Many men look for a formula, a single gesture that serves as a magic key. But the truth is that female attraction does not operate so mechanically. It is an ecosystem of signs, a pattern of behavior that unfolds over time. What I offer you is not a trick, but emotional literacy. It is the ability to read the full story being told through micro-expressions, shifts in posture, and, crucially, unguarded gestures that reveal the true emotional temperature of the moment. So let us establish the most important rule of all, the foundation on which all your perception must be built. A single gesture in isolation means absolutely nothing. It may be noise, a nervous tic, a coincidence. Real clarity emerges from observing consistent patterns, the context of the interaction, and the coherence among multiple signals. A hand moving toward you during a joke carries a different weight from a hand making the same movement in a silence loaded with tension. You need to learn to be a detective of behavior, not a hunter of isolated clues. It is the repetition of a gesture, its relationship to eye contact, and the perfect timing in which it occurs that transform a simple movement into a silent confession. The reason we focus on the hands is deeply psychological and neurological. The human brain has a limited capacity to consciously control all parts of the body at the same time, especially under emotional stress, whether positive or negative. When a woman is in your presence and feels a strong wave of attraction, Her limbic system, the emotional center of the brain, is highly active. While the conscious mind is busy managing the conversation, the smile, and eye contact, the extremities of the body, especially the hands, become honest leaks of that emotional energy. They become the stage where the truth of the subconscious is performed, revealing desire, nervousness, receptivity, or hesitation, with an honesty that the mouth can rarely match in that instant. Let us begin with the most fundamental and yet often overlooked sign, the use of space. A woman's hands, when she is interested, become explorers. They test the boundaries of your personal territory. Notice how she gestures. Do her hands remain rigidly in her own space, close to her body, or do they begin to cross the invisible line at the center of the table? She may begin by straightening a napkin, moving a glass, or simply gesturing more broadly in your direction. This is not a direct invitation, but rather a subconscious acknowledgement that the distance between you is shrinking, not only physically but psychologically. It is the first step, the subtle approach that measures your reaction and establishes that the field of interaction now includes your side of the table. From that initial exploration of space, the next level of reading is the removal of barriers. This sign is more active and deliberate, though it still operates on a mostly subconscious level. Pay attention to the objects between the two of you: a phone, a purse, a menu, even a glass of water. As the connection grows, a woman who is feeling receptive to greater intimacy will often use her hands to casually move these objects aside. It is a symbolic act of clearing the way. The barrier that once separated your physical spaces is dismantled. This gesture is incredibly revealing because it demonstrates an unconscious desire to reduce any impediment, physical or symbolic, that may exist between your attention and hers. But removing barriers is only the beginning of the interpretive journey. What happens when her hands, instead of moving toward space or objects, move toward herself? This is a deeper level of reading, and it is exactly where most men get lost, confusing nervousness with disinterest. When a woman begins to touch herself, she is actually amplifying the energy of the interaction. Her body becomes the main stage of nonverbal communication. Understanding this transition from the external to the internal is what separates a superficial reading from sharp perception. So pay very close attention, because we are about to decode the signals she sends when the focus of her attention turns inward. One of the most common and most misinterpreted self-touch gestures is what we might call the self-soothing gesture. She may touch her own arm, rub her hands gently, or play with a ring. The inexperienced reader may see this as a sign of anxiety or discomfort, a desire to close herself off. And in some contexts, it may be. But when this gesture is accompanied by sustained eye contact, a soft smile, and a body oriented toward you, the meaning reverses completely. It is not the anxiety of repulsion, but the tension of attraction. It is her body trying to handle the excess of positive emotional energy. She is calming herself not in order to flee, but in order to remain in the intense moment the two of you are creating together. From there, we escalate from self-soothing to subtle self-display. When a woman's hand travels to touch her own neck, collarbone, or lightly passes over her lips while she listens to you, she is subconsciously guiding your gaze. Think about it. These are areas of the body universally associated with vulnerability, femininity, and sensuality. It is not a random gesture. It is an unconscious spotlight. She is non-verbally saying, "Look here, pay attention to this part of me." This act of drawing attention to more intimate and delicate zones is a powerful indicator that she is not only comfortable with your attention, but is actively inviting it to deepen, to notice more than just the words she is saying. Let us go deeper specifically into touching the neck and collarbone, because it is one of the most primitive and powerful signs. From the perspective of evolutionary psychology, exposing the neck is a universal sign of trust and submission in a positive context. It is a vital and vulnerable area. When a woman in your presence moves her hair aside to expose her neck or rests her hand lightly on her collarbone, she is communicating on a primal level that she feels safe and unguarded with you. It is the opposite of shrinking back or protecting herself. This gesture of voluntary vulnerability is an incredibly intimate way of saying, "I trust you. Around you, I can lower my defenses." And that trust is one of the key ingredients that precede physical intimacy. Now, if touching the neck is a door opening, the neck sign is as if she were holding the doorknob for you. It is subtler but infinitely more powerful, because it involves the act of preparation. I am talking about what are called preening gestures. If, in the middle of the conversation, while maintaining eye contact with you, her hand goes to her hair to fix a strand that was not out of place, or smooths a part of her dress that was not wrinkled, or touches an earring for no apparent reason, pay very close attention. She is preparing herself. It is the subconscious equivalent of, "Let me fix myself for this moment." It is a sign that she is invested in your perception of her right now, and wants to be in her best version for what she senses may happen next. The next step in the escalation brings the focus even closer to your goal. When her hands begin to move toward her own face, the communication becomes more direct. Notice if she rests her chin on her hand, with her fingers pointing upward, or if she lightly touches her cheek while listening to you. This gesture serves two crucial functions. First, it drastically shortens the physical distance between the two of you, bringing her hand very close to your field of vision and the kissing zone. Second, it works as a frame for her face, an arrangement that subconsciously directs all your attention to her eyes and lips. It is a visual invitation for you to focus on the area where the action she wants is about to happen. There is one sign that requires an even higher level of observation, because it is not about what she does, but about how she reacts to what you do. I am talking about mirroring. If you have your hand on your chin, and a few seconds later she does the same, if you tilt your head and she subtly follows the movement, if her hands on the table adopt a position similar to yours, you are witnessing one of the deepest signs of rapport and connection. Mirroring is a completely unconscious process that says, "I am in sync with you. I feel connected to you." When her hands begin to imitate yours, it is a sign that the barriers between you have dissolved on an almost neurological level. But all of these signs, as strong as they may be, can still carry a layer of ambiguity for the insecure observer. There is, however, one gesture that crosses the line from speculation into confirmation. It is when her hands not only react to the environment or to herself, but begin to speak directly about the heart, literally. This is the moment when the analysis becomes deeper, because the gesture stops being about superficial attraction and becomes about emotional connection felt in the body. If you have been paying attention, you have already built the context. Now you are about to witness the silent confession that validates everything else. This is the sign that inspired our video, the "this" of the title. It is the gesture of the hand over the heart. In a moment of strong emotional connection, perhaps after a shared laugh, something you confessed, or a meaningful silence, notice whether her hand moves to rest over her chest in the area of the heart or the sternum. This is not a theatrical gesture. It is a physical and involuntary reaction to an intense feeling. It is her body physically expressing, "What you said or did hit me here. I feel this." This gesture elevates the interaction from simple attraction to genuine, felt connection. When you see her hand go to her heart, you are seeing the physical manifestation of her emotional permission. Finally, we arrive at the last layer, the sign that joins inner desire to an outer invitation. After any of the previous signs has manifested, the final and clearest step is when her hand, which had previously been exploring, adjusting, or touching herself, finds a place to rest in the space between you. She may place her hand on the table next to yours, or on the couch at a short distance. If that hand is relaxed, with the palm facing up or to the side, it has stopped being a barrier and become a bridge. It is a target. It is a nonverbal invitation for you to initiate physical contact, perhaps by touching her hand with yours. This is the final checkpoint, the last green light before the kiss. She has come all the way. Now, the next action is yours. The beauty of understanding this progression is that it frees you from the need to guess. You are no longer looking for a single magical sign, but rather observing a story as it unfolds. It begins with approach. The breaking down of barriers evolves into self-touch that reveals the tension of attraction, deepens through gestures of vulnerability and preparation, and culminates in an emotional confession and a physical invitation. Each step is a layer of permission being granted. Your job is not to force the moment, but to recognize when the path has been completely paved for you. Hesitation dissolves when you realize you are not stepping into the dark, but walking along a trail she herself illuminated for you, gesture by gesture. Let us imagine a classic scene. A first date in a cafe. You are sitting across from each other, and her phone is on the table, exactly between the two of you, creating a small wall. The conversation flows, but the barrier is there. The average man notices nothing. But you now are observing. In a moment of real connection, perhaps after you shared something personal or made her genuinely laugh, her hand, seemingly casually, slides over and moves the phone aside, clearing the space between you. A literal-minded reader might think, she is just tidying the table. But the psychology of the gesture is profound. She did not move it during the conversation about the weather. She moved it at the peak of connection. The physical act of removing the barrier is the manifestation of a subconscious desire to remove emotional and psychological distance. Permission is being built, brick by brick. Now let us move to a more intimate environment. The living room couch while a movie is playing. The distance between you is small. The common mistake is to focus only on the obvious. She is close. But the hands tell the real story. At first, her hand may be resting on the couch, but with tense fingers or the palm facing down, a neutral, almost defensive position. As the movie goes on and a more romantic or tense atmosphere sets in, observe that hand. Does it relax? Does the palm turn upward, open and receptive? This is the passive invitation. And if she begins to lightly touch her own leg or the cushion beside her, the man who reads literally sees nervousness and pulls back. The man who understands the psychology sees her body trying to process the excess energy of attraction. It is not a sign to move away, but a sign that the intensity of the moment is almost too much for her to contain. Finally, the most complex situation. A bar, with friends around. The social noise is high and attention is divided. This is where contradictory signals confuse most men. She is speaking animatedly with someone else, but watch her hands. While she laughs at a friend's joke, her hand seeks yours for a fraction of a second, or rests on your arm as an anchor point. Her words and her eyes are in one place, but the physical contact, the emotional center of gravity, is on you. The emotional logic here is crucial. The body seeks what it desires, even when the mind is occupied with social rules. She is maintaining the social facade with her mouth, but her hands are betraying the truth of her focus and desire, revealing who in that noisy room truly has her attention. Now we need to inject a dose of realism and wisdom into this analysis, because the biggest trap in reading body language is not ignorance but fantasy. The most dangerous mistake you can make is confirmation bias, desperately looking for a yes and turning any ambiguous gesture into the permission you want to see. A hand moving in your direction may simply be reaching for the salt. A touch to the hair may simply be a nervous tick. If you ignore a tense body, crossed arms, and one-word answers, but cling to a single moment when her hand moved the phone, you are not being perceptive. You are deceiving yourself. The golden rule is, negative signals always outweigh positive ones. A body that screams no through its posture cannot be silenced by the ambiguous whisper of a single gesture with the hand. Therefore, your task is not only to hunt for yes signals, but also to remain vigilantly aware of the absence of no signals. The true green light is not only the presence of invitations, but the total and consistent absence of barriers. Context is the sovereign king that rules over all of these gestures. A touch to the neck during an intimate conversation and sustained eye contact is one thing. The same touch while she looks toward the door and the conversation dies is something entirely different, probably a sign of discomfort. You must become a master of reading the overall atmosphere of the interaction. Real permission is not an isolated moment. It is a climate being built, a consistency of openness, an absence of hesitation on her part. The lack of resistance is a much more powerful sign than a single inviting gesture. But after this whole journey of decoding movement, the final escalation and the deepest revelation are not in one more gesture, but rather in a stillness charged with intention. There comes a moment, the peak of the connection you have built, when eye contact is sustained effortlessly and the space between you vibrates with palpable tension. This is where you must observe the great confession. Her hands, which had previously been exploring, adjusting, or touching her own body in a dance of attraction, suddenly end their ballet. They move slowly, deliberately, and come to rest in her lap, or on the table, completely relaxed, perhaps with the palms turned slightly upward. And then, most importantly, she stops talking. This silence and stillness are not passivity. They are the final and most courageous act of vulnerability. It is the conscious surrender of control. She has built the bridge, removed every obstacle, and now, by immobilizing her most honest tools of communication, she is creating a vacuum that only your action can fill. This stillness is not an ending. It is an offering. It is permission in its purest form, a stage set where the only line missing is your kiss. And so, the veil is lifted. You now do not just look, you see. You do not just listen, you decipher. You have learned to read silent permission, the most honest kind of all, transforming the anxiety of doubt into the clarity of perception. But that clarity, powerful as it is, illuminates only one side of the path. Knowing when a woman says yes with her hands is a transformative skill, but it is dangerously incomplete if you do not know how to read, with the same precision, the no hiding behind a polite smile. That is why your journey does not end here. It continues in our next video, where we will decode the signs of disinterest most men ignore. Click on the screen right now and complete your understanding, learning to navigate not only invitation, but also its absence, ensuring that every step you take is safe, confident, and above all, welcome.